World War II because their exploits truly were legion. It was the Royal Air Force that first took the B-17 to war in the European theatre. It did so disastrously. Number 90 Squadron was the first to operate the Fortress 1, and their maiden raid was to Wilhelmshaven on the 8th of July 1941. By that September, daylight raids had been abandoned by RAF Bomber Command, and 8 of those first RAF B-17s had been lost. While later Mark B-17s went on to see great success with Royal Air Force Coastal Command sinking 11 U-boats, that early RAF experience of the B-17 as a bomber showed that it needed all sorts of improvements. It needed more in the way of defensive armament to protect itself, it needed a bigger bomb load to be truly operationally effective, and it needed improved bomb aiming equipment. And all of the US Army Air Force's B-17s deployed to Europe during 1942 would have those. This was the ultimate wartime variant, B-17G, that we see here. Bomb bay, as you may have seen with it open on that orbit, typical bomb loads between 4.5 and 8,000 pounds depending on the mission. A smaller bomb bay certainly than the Lancaster, and also on the longer ranged B-24 Liberators that operated alongside the 8th Air Force's B-17s. And conditions on board these heavy bombers at altitude were pretty appalling. It was extremely noisy, it was very cold up there. The crew members had little in the way of armour plating or personal protective equipment, and of course there was always that ever-present threat of enemy action, whether from anti-aircraft fire or enemy fighters. In that regard, the presence of better escort fighters was of great assistance. We've just seen the P-51 Mustang, but also the P-47 Thunderbolt and P-38 Lightning, very effective in that role. And gradually the Allies gained air superiority over Europe. B-17 losses thus managed to decrease somewhat, though flak remained an ever-present danger for the flying fortresses, even though this was an aircraft that could withstand an immense amount of battle damage. And it's because of all of that and more that Ellie Sallingbow and her colleagues at B17 Preservation Limited, based at Duxford in Cambridgeshire, have kept this aircraft flying in private hands. What's more, they've now done so for an incredible 42 years since this aeroplane first arrived on British soil for private operation back in 1975. Remains an absolutely majestic and very dignified sight at Air Displays. It acts as the official US 8th Air Force flying memorial in the United Kingdom. Keeping it airworthy has been a long and expensive and challenging struggle. Several times the aircraft has been laid low by technical problems. Each time it has bounced back, and in that the Sally B Supporters Club, with thousands of members the world over, has been of great assistance. All funds raised go towards supporting the continued operation of the B-17. Let's face it, we wouldn't wish for this aeroplane ever to be lost from European skies. And this, of course, is particularly important as the numbers of surviving veterans dwindle with the inevitable passage of time. But the B-17 remains unbowed. An aircraft that has really become part of the furniture of the British display circuit, but always with that important memorial purpose in mind. Don't forget that this aircraft is, as I say, privately owned and operated. It receives nothing in the way of official support. So your donations, your contributions in whatever form they come, are hugely appreciated by LE Sallingbow and B17 Preservation. It's a dedicated team of volunteers that does a huge amount to keep the aircraft in the air. Such a pleasure always to hear the beautifully harmonised sound of the four Wright Cyclone radial engines that power the B17, 1200 horsepower each, on this B17G model, which was built in 1945 by the Lockheed Vega plant at Burbank, California. It was delivered to the US Army Air Forces, saw no frontline use. It was used as a training and test aircraft. It then went to France's Institut Géographique National, the IGN, for use on survey and mapping work, until the late Ted White brought the aircraft to Britain in 1975. It's remained here flying ever since. And this final part of the display, with smoke on to simulate two damaged engines, a condition in which so many B-17s return from missions, is always used to salute the many members of the Sally B Supporters Club. Benefits associated with joining the club. You get an excellent newsletter amongst other things. You can find out more and sign up at www.sallyb.org.uk and indeed discover far more about this aeroplane's remarkable history. Captained today by Dutchman Peter Kuipers. He is one of the leading exponents of heavy multi-engine historic aircraft on the display circuit. Joining him on the flight deck as co-pilot today was Bill Tollett, as meanwhile Plain Sailing's consolidated PBY-58 Catalina gets into the air.
Photographers delight there. Catalina just being asked to vacate the display line. They were absolutely marvellous sporting departure there, but we must just recover Sally B first, and then we'll bring the Catalina back.
If there's an annual appeal held to aid the continued operation of the B-17, and more about that, as I say, on the Sally B website. Peter Kuipers captaining the aeroplane today in his day job,
I've seen that a lot, but yeah.
Airbus A330 captain for KLM Royal Dutch Airlines, so quite a contrast with the likes of the B-17 and the Douglas C-47 Skytrain, the military variant of the DC-3 that he regularly displays on the show circuit.
So we're just resetting the schedule now. The graceful and wonderful Sally B coming in. Do give the crew a wave as always, won't you? It's marvellous to see so much support for Sally B around the country. And your generous appreciation will go down well with crew and of course with Elise Sullinger as well. But the Catalina will be called back in very, very shortly. And then of course just to remind you that right after that at 2:30 will be our home team, the Red Arrows.
So Peter Kuiper